Hello, NewPic. We're having AV problems as usual. There'll probably be some people popping in and out while we're having this meeting. I'm Matt Taylor, broadcasting from Paso Robles, California, in my vintage Numenta.org t-shirt. Not many of these around anymore. See the old logo? We've got some Numenta engineers in the office in Redwood City waiting to talk to us. We've also got David Ray, lead programmer of HTM Java, and Jeff Full is going to give us an update on some visualization stuff. But for now, if you're actually following along, and I don't think you can see this in chat, but the actual Google Plus event has comments with a link to this wiki page that I'm going to be going through. And so I just want to show some things. First of all, this is HTM Hackers Hangout, which is a bit of a new thing. So we're not doing the whole looking at all the open PRs, all of our progress. This is really more of a 30,000-foot view that I'd like to do maybe once a month or so to kind of keep the community in sync with what us developers are actually doing with HTM, like across the board, applications, algorithm enhancements, and that sort of thing. So I have an agenda, and I will just share one of my screens. Here we go. So here was the agenda I'm going to run through. And then so for some people, I'll probably call out some things I want them to talk about. So let's do the app updates later, but I do want to talk about some of these other things. I'm not sure. Hey, Richard just joined. Hi, Richard. I was going to ask him to talk or to be involved in the Windows discussion. So since you're here, let's do that first, because I want to show something that you might not know actually exists that helped us out with an issue that popped up on the mailing list recently. Hey, Marcus, I heard that.
I didn't say anything. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, so you can hear some people and you can see other people, but maybe not at the same time. Anyhow, so on the NewPic Core wiki, by the way, if you go to the NewPic Core GitHub repo and go to the wiki, there's a Windows development page, which Richard is almost entirely filled with details on how to build NewPic Core on Windows. So you probably do want to have some Windows development chops to do this, but we've had a couple of people have some success getting things working with Windows following this README. This is where we're pointing people. So I just want you to know that it is possible to build and run NewPic on Windows if you know what you're doing. It's not as simple at this point as just pip install NewPic on Windows like it is on OS X for the most part. But we're getting there, and hopefully we'll get closer and closer to that state. Yeah, back to the wiki page. So we've also been working, I haven't really talked much about this, but on the Hackers page, we've been talking about this move towards Bamboo, which is a continuous integration product from Atlassian. So we have an open source license for this product, and so we're running these Bamboo servers, and Austin and I, Austin more successfully than I, has been building out these CI systems, these pipelines, build pipelines for NewPic and NewPic Core. We're still working on it, so it's not really ready, but you can see, like, Austin, you can jump in anytime you want to if you want to take the reins on this and explain exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, so basically we're trying to consolidate all of our resources related to testing and continuous integration. So we have currently Travis CI and AppBear for those, and for a long time we've had a instance internally that was running sort of its own separate version of the pipeline independent of the things going on with the source. With Bamboo, we'll just have one single system. So we've built out agents in Linux, OS X, and Windows, and in the process of building out the jobs where we can have a lot of the same functionality as we currently have Travis and all that in place.
Yeah, idea being that each one of these builds can have a Linux build, an OS X build, eventually a Windows build, and each one should be able to run independently on the same platform, so we don't have to have Travis CI over here, AppVeyor over here for this one. And we can have a lot more control over the versions of the operating systems we're testing, because we basically build those agents that are running these builds. So we won't be tied to Travis CI and what version of Ubuntu they want us to use, for example. We can always use the latest Ubuntu, which is great because we'll find issues faster. A lot of times somebody comes up and says, you know, latest Ubuntu is failing because of X, Y, Z, and we'll get a leg up on those issues because we'll know immediately as soon as that happens. And we can also still, you know, run builds from an older version of Ubuntu or even different flavors of Linux entirely. So it just gives us a lot more flexibility as we move towards the future to do exactly what we want with these different operating systems that we want to build on. And this is a platform that we can take advantage of in the HTM Java project. If David Ray wants to move towards this, I've offered help getting him set up as well. But in the end, that's up to you and how you want to run your project, David. But I'm excited about this. I think this is going to be great when it's done. Right now, the plan is to build out the NewPic core and NewPic pipeline sort of in parallel in Bamboo with what we currently have in Travis and AppVeyor. And once we've got something working, we'll kind of just switch over. So that's the plan. We're making good progress. It's not super fast because infrastructure work isn't the most fun and exciting work.
This is also something we're doing in the open as well. So ci.newmentor.com is public. It's not something that's running behind the firewall. So, you know, anyone who's watching can watch that as well.
Yeah, the idea being, you know, since all our work is open source, everything we're doing on Amenta, so our projects, a couple projects that hopefully we'll talk about in a bit, we're building those as well on Bamboo. So we're going to have the whole suite of our open source software building on the same system, and it's really going to help simplify things in the long run. So any questions on CI stuff? We're going to move on to another topic. Okay, let's talk about C++ algorithms, because I have heard through the grapevine that the temporal memory algorithm port to C++ is basically complete. Is that true?
That's the problem with rumors, right?
That's the what?
Close. It's close. There's incompatibility with, or like there's a difference between the C++ and Python temporal memory when one of the parameters is with a certain configuration of parameters. So,
I mean, that's not like necessarily a bug. It's like different. There's 1,000 people who match it.
Guys, it's hard to hear you. Just try and speak up if you can.
So yeah, you can use the C++ temporal memory. It is usable, and there is, I think there's a PR in review right now that allow you to use it through OPF that Sagan worked on. So with that, when that is merged, we can use the C++ version through OPF, and it works, and different tests pass. It's just not producing identical results to the Python version with a certain configuration of parameters. So that investigation is still underway. But yeah, it's usable.
So almost done, pretty much usable. Once this PR is merged that Sagan has been working on, we'll be able to use it through the OPF. What's the string keyword to use the C++ TM algorithm?
TM CPP.
Sorry?
TM underscore CPP.
That's logical. Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, this is be a really big step once this is done. And just to remind everyone, I think it was Richard who did the initial version of the temporal memory.cpp, and then Chaitin and Sagan have been working on all of the last discrepancies and various issues and getting it integrating it into all the other stuff. So. nice work there, everyone.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this a long time. Just as a reminder, what this is kind of a milestone. I mean, once this is complete and we can say, there's algorithm parity basically between Python and C, then there is a potential that someone could come along and write their own client for the C++ package for NewPic Core and expose whatever language bindings they want with complete algorithm package in NewPic Core. And I think that's a big deal. I'm not sure if that's going to happen right away, but I know there have been people waiting for that to happen so that they can build a Ruby client, for example, or something like that.
I have a question. Does the Spatial Puller, is there a port for the Spatial Puller also?
Yeah, that's been there for a while. That is there.
Oh, great.
And the classifier is there too.
Okay.
It'll be sort of algorithmically complete in C++. The encoders are still lacking.
Okay, all right. So Chayden's going to be working on the network API in C++?
The network API is there. That is written in C++. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
what's missing is perhaps some regions which use these algorithms. But if you don't want to use the network API, you could do everything with just these algorithm pieces here in C++.
Okay. So I just want to remind any viewers out there, we've got 8 people watching, and to ask questions through the Q&A interface. Someone's already told me that I need to share the links while I'm talking. So if you're looking at the Google Plus page for this event, there's a link in the comments that goes to a wiki page. That wiki page has all the links of everything that I'm showing right now. And while we're on the subject of temporal memory, Chand and Maruthi had a question of what's the biggest resource hog in temporal memory?
Well, if you asked me what the biggest resource hog was, I would have said temporal memory. What's the biggest hog inside temporal memory?
The biggest, from a CPU standpoint, and from an algorithm standpoint, the biggest loop in there is the loop that tries to figure out which cells are predicted, because that has to look at all of the cells and for each cell figure out whether it's getting sufficient input or not. So from an optimization standpoint, that's the biggest thing. This version does include some smart ways of doing that, so I don't know if it's a true resource hog in this implementation, but at least conceptually, that's the biggest hog. The next step here is to profile it and then figure out which pieces are real bottlenecks.
Okay, cool. So the next topic that I was going to go on to was a serialization update and maybe a better idea of ETA, where we're at with that progress. And I think I'll let Scott talk about that.
I was reading a little thing that popped up on your screen, so could you repeat the question?
Oh, I just said like a serialization update. You or anybody can talk about where we're at, what's going to get done.
Yeah, Chain made a lot of good progress on that up until a couple weeks ago when we had to switch focus on this temporal memory stuff because we really wanted to hammer that out. There's one issue that came up where we build multiple dynamic libraries that are loaded by Python, and if multiple of those compile in the same cat proto schema, then if your script happens to load both those dynamic libraries, then you get an error. So I implemented a change where we separate the cat proto schemas into their own dynamic libraries, so that way if multiple of our Python extension libraries use the same schema, they're getting it from the same place rather than compiling it in 2 separate times. I got it all working on OS X. It doesn't work on Travis OS X, and I couldn't figure out why. I also needed to debug it on Windows and Linux. That's the current state. That's also holding up a change that Shane was working on. Once we figure that out, I think there's a couple more things we need to port, but I mean, we're pretty damn. We were really close until this issue came up. Once we resolve this issue, we'll be really close again.
So we're in the home stretch. It's just the home stretch keeps stretching.
Yeah.
We just have 10% to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just to remind everybody that once this serialization issue is complete and we've moved everything to Cap and P, it's going to be a seriously significant increase in performance when you're saving and resurrecting models to and from disk.
Yeah, there's also one of the disappointing aspects about using Cap and Proto is we found out that the Microsoft compiler doesn't support all of the features that it uses. So when we implemented it, we had to disable the serialization on Windows. I did notice that some Cap and Proto community member had backported enough of the functionality to work on Visual Studio 2013, so it would also work on 2015. So that I think that's something that we could try using, which may enable all of the serialization stuff to work on Windows as well, which would be nice. But that's definitely future work after we get it, the current stuff done.
All right, thank you, Scott, for the serialization update. So let's move to David Ray. Do you have any updates about HTM Java? I know you've been working with this Roaring Bitmaps author. You might want to talk about that a bit. Oh, he just dropped off. Bad timing. Okay, we'll wait for David to there he is. You're back. As soon as I call on you, you're like, anyway, do you want to talk about Roaring Bitmaps?
Okay, sure. So I guess last November, I think it was, one of the community members who had been a contributor to HTM.Java brought up the issue of vector representation. And there have been a couple community members who talked about, why is it that we're using 32, we're using, for our bit vectors, we're using ints, Java ints are 32 bits, and isn't that a waste of money, of memory? Not really a waste of money, but so why use 32 bits to represent a single on bit? And I don't know if, have you guys done any looking into like compressed vectors or bitmaps to represent, the SDRs as opposed to, lists in Python or something like that? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I mean, some parts of the code I think use like a list of shorts or an array of shorts.
Right.
If you just store the indices, that's what our sparse matrix implementation does.
Oh, it uses shorts?
It's a typed class, so you can do whatever type you want, but it depends how big the indices get.
Okay, all right.
What are you using now?
I'm using just a plain old int array in Java. So that's, for a 2048-bit SDR, that's 65,536 bits, I think.
Oh, okay. So we just store the indices of the non-zero entries, so then it's much shorter.
Right. So, we were looking at that, and I do some of that too in HTM.Java. I wrote up a sparse binary matrix class, and then we've had some contributions done by his call name is Chelu. What's his name? He's in.
Just call him Chelu.
Okay, he's in Spain. But anyway, and he was doing some visual coding. He wanted to encode. I guess he was doing an MNIST experiment or something like that. Anyway, he was talking about how his input vectors were, in the gigabyte range, and so he wanted to minimize memory. So he worked on a couple of different implementations, one with a low memory profile and another that was pretty fast. So there's been some work around this already, and I started looking into it because I was also looking into linear algebra libraries to use for some of the more advanced aspects of the KNN classifier. And then, I was looking for a library that could handle both, some of the algorithms for the KNN classifier and also help with some of the other data structure representations. So I got this idea to use a compressed bitmap, a list of compressed bitmaps for the backing data structure for the sparse binary matrix. And so I talked to, there's a guy, his name is Daniel Lemire, and he's got like white papers on, he's like the authority on data compression, or at least bitmap compression. He's got implementations that are ported over to C++ and a few different languages. And I wrote him about this idea to use his compressed bitmaps called roaring bitmaps. They're like the fastest ones, at least in the Java world. I'm not sure about the C++ world, but and to use those compressed bitmaps. In Java, they have something called a bit set, which is a binary, which is a bit, as opposed to using 32 bits as, to represent an int. But in Java, a bit is basically translated to a short, I think. When you're using binary arrays, those are truly, actually bit arrays. But when you're using a binary primitive type, then it's a short. Anyway, so roaring bitmaps. Daniel Lemire, I wrote him about it, and he got intrigued about it, and he said he would actually like to possibly contribute to HTM.java, and possibly do some work on something called a roaring matrix. So I forked the repo, and I branched it, and I've been working on just getting up a basic temporal memory and spatial puller and maybe one of the encoders, and substituting out the data type and seeing if, because Daniel Lemire said that possibly we could speed up things a whole lot by not moving around these incredibly huge data structures. I mean, it's going to obviously save memory, but he also said it should improve performance. There's been some work on, I've seen on Stack Overflow, that actually using the 32 bits, because that is the register size in the JVM, that actually is faster than using partial sizes. So I'm kind of up in the air, so I'm going to write a benchmark and test it, do this translation. I think I finished porting the temporal memory over to it, but the spatial puller is going to be a larger thing because it actually uses the sparse bitmap, sparse binary matrix. So, and then I have to substitute all of the array utils, the Python utilities that I basically ported NumPy, looks like, and try to get that in using these roaring bitmaps. So the whole idea is to just get it working using SDR, using bitmap representations for SDRs and seeing how fast it is. So,
so the first thing is to write a benchmark, huh?
Right. And then, Daniel Lemire also suggested using Boolean arrays too. So we'll try a couple of different things. But first, I know I want to try this bitmap thing because that's a few community members have already, they've inquired about it, and it seems like if we get this working, that it could be, a huge performance boost for HTM.Java.
That's great. Thanks for the update, David.
Okay, sure.
All right, so I wanted to talk about some HTM apps that people are building, and I had a list of them here. First of all, is anybody in the office there comfortable talking about either HTM Studio or Imbu, just the current state, general overview of what these things are?
Yeah, I can take sorry.
Why? We haven't released them.
They're open source. I mean, I don't see any problem talking about what we're doing. We're not making an official announcement or making a release, but I think it's fine to talk about what we're doing with this code. What the plan is.
I don't know if you can hear me, maybe?
A little.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I can talk about HTM Studio. An overview of this. It's if you don't know what HTM Studio is, it's under the code name Unicorn in NewPic Apps. It's basically a desktop app to make it easy for people to experiment with the HTM, especially non-technical users. It's basically a UI to interact with NewPic. You don't need to install anything, just download the app. The state where it's at, that we are about to reach the first phase of testing in about 2 weeks. So just friends and family to test the first version of the app. Yeah, and then
It's for anomaly detection.
It's for anomaly detection. It works with scalar data only. It's. I don't know what else I can say. Is that enough, or do you want more details?
No, that's good. I don't know. Maybe you could talk about this. Just the state. Is it in a place where the README instructions are good enough for somebody to attempt to run it?
I mean, I think so. I think there might just be one issue, is that if you need to have NewPic running on the machine, obviously, because right now it's in a state where you can get the source code and it's easy to get the Electron app running. However, if you don't have NewPic installed, you won't be able to create models, obviously. So if you want to do that, you just need to make sure NewPic is there and you can run this little piece of the code that's called another runner. It's all explained in this.
That's just the current state.
That's the current state where it's at.
In the end, when people won't need to install.
Yeah, they won't need to install the final version of the app. Everything will be bundled into that. You need to.
Will it work on Windows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are also in the repo. There are a couple of scripts and instructions to build portable Python distributions. It's interesting in the sense that you can just build this and then you can run NewPic anywhere on the machine. Let's say you put that portable Python distribution on a USB stick. You can run NewPic with this portable Python distribution from anywhere. And that is what we do in the app.
So that could be hackathons too. You could just
instead of having if people get started, the first thing that they do is they get stuck on NewPic installation. Instead, you could get them this, on a USB stick with a portable Python distribution.
Yeah, so thank you, Marian. If anyone had a hard time hearing that, the audio from the office isn't very good, apparently. So the whole idea behind this HTM Studio, or the Unicorn subdirectory in the NewPic Apps repository, is to make it easy for anyone trying to cross-platform to run NewPic. So Marianne and her team has done a great job of like bundling a portable Python installation to be installed with this Electron app, and Electron being a JavaScript environment that can run on Windows or Linux or whatever, and it just comes bundled with Python, in case you don't have Python, and a NewPic, which you may not have either. So she's saying now you could try and run it yourself, but you do have to have NewPic running locally, I think, for it to work. So thanks for that update. And the main thing, you know, it's going to allow you to take data files that you have and watch them run in HTM and see anomalies happening on them sort of live on your own data, which can be kind of hard if you're trying to do it through compiling and running everything locally yourself. Hey, Jeff Full. Are you around? Are you up for talking about the NewPic visualization project?
Hey, yeah, sure. So Marek was asking a few weeks ago about getting some help with visualizing CSV files, basically output of OPF, and I thought that sounded interesting to me. So he and I have been working on a little sort of a little mini app to just read and view CSV files. So I guess should I share my screen to show what it looks like? Let's see. I can do that.
Yay!
Okay. So it's kind of a thing, a work in progress. It's definitely a work in progress, and I've just been working with Marek on it, and so actually, if anybody finds this useful, I would love to get some feedback on what people find useful and what their needs are. The project is up on the NewPic community called NewPic.Visualizations, until we get a better name for it. And it's a simple web app that uses digraphs, which is a kind of a little tool, open source tool for charting.
Sorry.
Sure. And this is the first version of it that's hosted up at Firebase. And this version allows you to upload a file from your computer and upload it, and it'll be read and turned into a graph. And it's got a few different features here. Right here, it's a little warning you that it's not monotonic. That is, there's a reset happening somewhere probably. You can get a different file. This is the output of an OPF. Oops, this didn't work. Okay, let's start over. Definitely work in progress here. So some of the things you can do are you can make these visible and hide them, hide all of them, show all of them. You can normalize the data, sort of a pseudo normalization that just visually allows you to see if you've got the anomaly score is being charted on the same axis as the consumption score, that it's kind of hard to read the anomaly score, so you can scale it up so you can see that in relationship to whatever other data you have. Then this is cool and worked great. And Matt was saying, oh, well, you know, what I really need to do is be able to see data as it's flowing out of NewPic into a file. We can't do that with this using the file browser, because the web browser is a sandbox. So I started working on a one that uses a server that can connect to a local file, which is a completely different approach. And this allows you to get a file that's on your local operating system. So this definitely should not be ever hosted publicly. So here's an example of the same file hosted locally. You just paste in the path on your computer to the file, and it loads it in. This version also has a couple of little features. It allows you to highlight thresholds. So if you just wanted to see the anomaly score and set a threshold for 0.9, you can adjust that and it'll automatically update as you're typing. And also, so if you wanted to add a file that's updating, I can put in a temporary file here. This is a test file. And I'm going to do just a little bash script here that will update this file every quarter second or so. And then reload that. Let's see. Actually, I think I need to reload. There we go. So it just starts feeding it in. So because this is a web app, and I said this before, is this is obviously not very secure. A very good idea to post this publicly. So if someone were to post it publicly, we need a method for not enabling this feature. So you can't just type in a path to some file and have the public read it. But if this were ever posted publicly, then I suppose we would have a different kind of interface. What I'm imagining here is eventually you'd be able to pan back and forth. Basically, there's a play, rewind, fast forward, jump around, and scan through files easily, as well as observe files that are being updated in real time. If you are interested in this project or it's useful in any way to you, that would be great to know. We'd love to build it so that it's actually useful to some people. You can post stuff on our Gitter thread or post issues on the GitHub project. Matt, I'll use you as a proxy for anyone else out there. Do you have any questions about it?
Someone asked why you were using Node version 0.10.25.
I think it's using version 4 in the latest one. I think that was just because I used some boilerplate code, I think, in the version of it. But okay.
I'm going to paste something in chat that the same guy, Martin, said. I think he has a suggestion. So.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters. Other things we're doing are using any latest features of Node. Right. Yeah, and people interested in the architecture, it's a Node app using Angular as a framework for the client, and we're using Socket.io for communication between the server and the client.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
So anybody else needs to go, that's fine. I know we're running later than I scheduled this for, but since we have so many people watching and joined, we're going to just keep going.
Jeff, that looks great. I know there was some discussion with Alex about using some of that for replacing some of the way we do the NAP visualizations with this, which would be great.
Yeah, there was for a little while. I think that he wanted to kind of see when we got it sort of stable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then reconnect with us. But any feedback is great. I definitely want to build something that's. I'm kind of building it for my own needs and for Marek's needs at the moment. The more people who have input, the better it's going to be.
So I generally have input because I'd like to use this for some of our demos, like the Hot Gym tutorial, which currently uses Matplotlib. has a bunch of extra code just dedicated to matplotlib, and I really hate matplotlib. So having something that can just like be watching this CSV file that's really easy to populate with NewPic results, and then just showing a plot as it's populated would be really nice.
Yeah, great. Glad to be doing something for that people can use.
It looks great, Jeff.
Thanks.
I was going to just keep going through and talking about some apps. We haven't talked about any of our NLP stuff. I don't know if Alex is around. He's kind of the guy leading that.
Alex is not here, but I could give an update.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And there's two sides to it. There's the NLP research, and then Alex is leading kind of the app version of that called Inbu, with working with Austin. And on the NLP research side, we've been working a lot with the cortical IO SDRs, trying to see, explore different applications of that, and more interestingly, trying to take that as input. Since they're just outputting SDRs, we can use that as input into temporal memory and temporal pooling, and experiment on those algorithms and try to see if there's interesting use cases in natural language where using sequences and temporal pooling and so on can come into play. So that's a long-term kind of research project that we're working on. Inbu is an app that Alex and Austin are doing that sort of helps you visualize some of the results and interact with the models that are created. So those are all in progress. Really too early to really say anything too much about it. And those are all in the NewPic.research repository.
Yeah, and I think Inbu depends on NewPic research stuff too, so it's not going to be easy for somebody to just start it up and run it or anything.
There are instructions for running in Docker. There's a full, we need to bring it up online. You will need a cortical.io API key, but that should be all you need.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, we saw.
So what does Inbu mean? I've been struggling with that, and I just had to have that one answered. So.
Does anyone know?
Yeah, does anyone know who's listening other than the people in this room?
That's a no.
No.
No one knows.
No one would know, yeah. So it's, Alex came up with the name, first of all, so I want to blame him. But so if you know the book Ender's Game, there's a character in there called Inbu, and he was the designer of the brain game in there. So that's the code name.
It's a science fiction novel.
I think isn't it a movie too?
Yeah.
Yeah, but just read the book.
Okay, all right.
Okay. All right, thanks for the update. We talked about HTM Studio, Inbu, NewPic Visualization. I'll talk briefly about these other couple things. Let me share my screen. Like I said, if you guys need to run, go for it, but I'll take advantage of having people here to talk about HTM in the cloud. Okay, so first of all, this is not like HTM Engine. HTM Engine is much more production ready than this HTM in the cloud thing. So basically, this is mostly Jonathan McKenzie's work, because I asked on the mailing list for somebody to build this. I needed like a REST API that has HTM running behind it. I want to create some models through it. I want to pass data, and I want to get predictions back. Yeah, that's basically it. So it's a very poor man's version of that. I haven't touched it. Like, it's about 2 months old now. I haven't had time to really work on this, but I have plans for this thing. It's a very wimpy little application right now, but there's potential to maybe tear out the HTM guts and put HTM Engine in its place at some point, or something more resilient than what we have right now. Right now, you can start it up. You can run maybe 3 or 4 models at the same time before you run out of resources. And then if you send enough data to those models, eventually you'll run out of resources. So it's really kind of just a toy server right now for me to run experiments without having to run NewPic on my computer all the time.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
There is a simple server in NewPic. It's just NewPic.SimpleServer that probably does the same thing that this is doing right now. It sounds like this probably has a larger scope in the longer term, but just so you're aware of it, you could look at that.
Yes, and I did, and so did Jonathan. So we look. I worked with Jonathan to kind of outline all the different potential ways we could do this. And using that HTM simple server was one. He wanted to put a little bit more functionality than that, so he just wrote his own, which was okay with me. I was just looking for results. So, so basically, it's just a REST API, and it's basically post, get, put, delete. That's it. And when this thing crashes, everything's gone. So it's not a great product, but it's just something to use. I'm using it in this IoT project that I've been working on with Jeff Full that provides a bridge to SmartThings data. SmartThings is an IoT platform for your home or whatever, where you can install a hub and a bunch of different sensors and stuff around the office. And so this thing accepts data that's being pushed from all of those IoT devices. And I've got things like not just temperature, but door sensors open and close, motion sensors, whether there's motion or not in a certain area, electricity usage that are attached to outlets, and there's a whole bunch more different devices that can be attached to this SmartThings platform, and it just stores it in a time series database and optionally pushes it to that HTM in the cloud server, It's not really working that great right now because, or the HTM part is not, because I haven't optimized any parameters. We're just using the basic anomaly detection parameters. The data's coming in at totally different rates from all these different sensors, so the aggregation part's not done. There's lots of things that need to get done to fix this up, and they're all defined in all of these issues here, and as well as in HITC, HTM in the cloud, there's a bunch of relevant issues that need work. So these are things that if somebody's interested in working on HTM applications and you don't want to get down to the algorithms, you know a little Python, you know some JavaScript, we could use your help on this stuff. So I'm sort of trying to plan them, mastermind them, but I don't always have the time to work on them. But I'm still really interested in IoT applications for sure with HTM. I just installed a SmartThings hub in my own house. And so I'm like getting excited about all this data that I have like coming out of my house now. So I'd really like to get this working. So that's some pet project of mine, and I appreciate the help from Jonathan McKinsey and from Jeff Full on that. And as I have time, I'll continue working on it. I'm not gonna let it go. Let's see if we have any more questions. No. Yes, Chandan is asking about serialization. Are there any reasons that we're not exploring things like live storage, Redis, React, that sort of thing, instead of file system storage? Anyone?
On the NewPic side, we're trying to build a library for software developers, not a specific application. But NewPic by itself doesn't do a whole lot. You're going to have to build your application on top of it. As such, you're welcome to use whatever you want.
Right. No reason not to use those things once we get to that point, right?
And actually, in HTM Engine, we use accommodate. I mean, we don't actually store the models in the database, but you could. And we store a lot of other things in relational databases and and RabbitMQ and stuff like that.
Right. Okay, folks. I don't have any more topics. I've run out of things to talk about, and we have a few minutes. I only have about 5 minutes, and I have another meeting to get to. If anybody that's connected here wants to bring anything up, discuss with the rest of the hackers, now's your chance.
Is Austin going to be shaving anytime soon?
No.
Wow.
Much to all our wives' chagrins. Okay, everybody.
Has there been any observation of NewPic slowdown, like running after running, like hours? Like, what happens when segments, when you have like a ton of segments that get created and stuff? Is there going to be any work on? I don't know if you guys have already implemented it or not, because I know you get rid of the synapses, but you still have the segments, so which means that any lists that have to go through segments and find segments that aren't used, we'll still have to iterate over all the segments and stuff. So I was wondering, like, segment removal, if that's going to happen, or if it...
Yeah, there's still a part of a limit.
There is, yeah, and then after that limit, we start reusing segments.
Yeah, so it should be a fixed resource. It's definitely an upper limit on the memory and time per record.
Right, right. So, I mean, is there any way we could do something where NewPic, plateaus after, a few hours and doesn't consume any more memory?
There's a hard upper limit on both memory and computation time per record.
So it'll just crash then?
No. What it means is that it'll slow down, but then there'll be a limit, and after that, it won't get any slower. But
I see. Okay, all right. Is there any documentation of that anywhere? I mean, because I don't know if I ported over NewPic, then it's in HTM.java somewhere, right? I mean, there is a max segments and all of that stuff, the parameters.
Well, then can't you answer this question?
I really can't. I mean, I know that the parameters exist, and I don't recall. I'm asking this question without having done any background or any homework on it.
Yeah, to be fair, there's been some recent changes around how exactly things work when you hit the limits, and at some point there was some cases where there was some exceptions that'd be thrown for synapses, and that's since been resolved. Chayden and Sagan should be the ones talking right now. They've been working on some of this stuff recently, but
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the synapse reuse I think has been there for a while, but there used to be an exception. So the segment reuse has been, but there used to be an exception with synapse limits. I think that PR was merged maybe a week ago, so it's quite a big change.
Cool. All right, so I would just take a look at.
It'd be interesting to have a stress test of this, where you just feed in, millions of data points into an HTM. What happens?
Totally.
You never know; it might just become conscious.
Well, I think we should put Sarah Connor in the closet then somewhere.
Yeah.
Protect her.
Okay, everybody, it sounds like we're wrapping up now. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who joined, everybody who's watching. And I'm going to do the typical YouTube thing now and say, if you enjoyed this YouTube broadcast, please hit the like and subscribe button at the bottom of your screen now. And if you like this new format, we're doing this little HTM Hacker Hangout thing. If this is better than the old one, which is NewPic Development Progress Review, please let me know. I want some feedback and see what you guys think. I'm trying to do this for the community. If this is useful for the community, then I'm happy. So let me know, please. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for that.